Cool, let's do this. You got to see some recent change with the site. We did a, what did we do? We did a color change. We're doing some language change on the site, moving from non-biased to fitness biased, because that's really what we are. We have a bias towards fitness, which language-wise means the same thing, but I think people will understand that a little bit better. And then we're also going to do a few other little things. We've got some workshops that we're trying to get solidified. We've got some talks on the stuff that with Brute that we were talking about that I'd like to get you guys to understand and know where we're at with that. As well as we have an announcement about membership and just kind of we're going to probably be closing off membership and just capping it at a certain place. So you guys are here. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we have the final details for us. But I wanted to tease it, I guess I should say. So you guys will see a video on that, a little bit nicer video on the site soon. All right, let's jump into the week. Monday again, the 18th through Sunday, the 24th. We've got another freaking epic week. This week does have a lot of, not complexity, but it's got a lot of nuance. I don't really know how to say it. It's got a lot of movements that need to be coached heavily. I think there's programming and there's weeks that go by where there's maybe a little bit more relaxed flow as a coach. You can just kind of let people go through them because they're more simple movements. And then there's movements that offer a little bit more complexity that you need to coach, and not necessarily complexity of the movement, but the complexity of the session and the intended stimulus and going for that. So this is a week that's a lot like that. So we've got Monday the 18th, and the day is 5-3-1 of thruster. Now, the thruster is a fantastic movement to test because it talks a lot about positioning in the squat, and you can really hammer home points of performance for squatting, show people's deficiencies. You can do a lot that just kind of highlights for people, where they need to work, as well as you can talk a lot about timing and hip mechanics, because although it's not the exact same thing as the extension and explosion for something like a clean or a snatch, it is the same really aggressive recruitment at that middle phase of the movement to get the bar to fly overhead. So when you can get that really aggressive drive through the middle, it's like you can get that in absence of a bar passing through that area. And that's, I think, one of the best parts about the thruster is you can really talk about weight in the foot, positioning, drive, and then explosion, and all in kind of this one all-encompassing movement. Now, it's 5-3-1, but that obviously doesn't mean you're only doing 5-3-1. You've got a bunch of build-up sets, and you'll see that down here with 7-5-5-5, and then working into the 3-1. It's also done out of a rack, so that way people don't have to clean the bar up into it. Takes that whole piece out of it, so people should be able to go really heavy. With the fitness version, they're saying 5-3-3. The reason for that is just a little bit more time under tension, and you'll see us post that up there often as the fitness scale. So they're doing another heavier set there for a set of 3 versus a set of 1. If you have somebody who's relatively new, who you think it'd be fun for them to go for a 1, and they're safe and they're moving well, absolutely have them try a set of 1. Just go up and go from there. It's totally okay. You just be the steward of your people and know what they need to do, and have them go up a little or not. That's 100% up to you as the coach. With the thruster, especially for load, one of the biggest things that you're going to have to look out for is an overextension of the low back. So going up overhead, people who are tight in their shoulders or who don't know how to keep that rib cage down and engaged as they drive into the ground for that thruster portion. Really, really focus on that as a coach today, is that not letting the overextension happen. And remember, when we coach that, it's something you coach earlier in the session. So once you're getting into the 5-3-1, you're not teaching that, you're revisiting that. So under less load and under less intense settings, you're just saying, hey, this is what we should be doing. This is how it should be. If you hear this cue, try this. Okay. The other part is we have a little optional finisher. I'd suggest trying to get to it if you can. If you can't, you can't. If you can, you can. It's a good little one. 5 250-meter row efforts, and the way you can do this is either partner up, or you can even get teams of 3, and they just kind of plug through those. Remember, though, if you have teams of 3, it's going to be quite a bit longer of the number of efforts they can do. If you're running out of time, then what I would suggest doing is maybe do 3 So don't even say, hey, we're doing 5 200 meter, 50 meter row efforts. We're doing 3. And then you can just ratchet up how hard they can go on each one, because they're going to get almost a 1-to-1 work to rest ratio if they're in partners, and if they're in thirds, then you get definitely a 1-to-1. But if you're running out of time and you want to get this, you can say, hey, we're going to drop it to 3, but I really need to, you don't even need to say I'm going to drop it to 3. Just don't even tell them what it is. Guys, by the way, we've got a finisher. Head on over to the rowers and hit it there. But if it's 5 sets and you have the time, it should be pretty much the same pacing for all 5. It's a fast pace because it's only a 250, but it's not a pace that you're going to like have to peel yourself out of the rower. Whereas if you're doing 3 efforts, I would say make it the peel yourself out of the effort, or peel yourself out of the rower effort, and just kind of turn the thumb screws on people who don't usually do that. Well, that's the day. Pretty straightforward. Coach the daylights out of the thruster. Yeah, Monday the 18th. All right, Tuesday the 19th, we've got a complex, to say the least, day. Okay, you've got 1 ring muscle up, 4 alternating pistols, and then every round you add 1 muscle up, 4 pistols. So it goes 1, 4, 2, 8, 3, 12, 4, 16. So you're adding quite a few pistols, and you're adding 1 muscle up each time. This is a fantastic day for you to teach the living daylights out of progressions for the muscle up, as well as talking about things for the pistol. Now we've got on the fitness side of things, we've got muscle up scales. We've also got Bulgarian squats as the scale that you're going to do. So you're going to either side and kind of getting that one-legged squat. Another thing you could do for this is a really like a weighted step up, or even a step up. A step up's pretty darn hard, like a controlled step up. And if you think about it, it's a very similar movement to a pistol. You've got a really deep single-legged squat. You just don't quite have the balance of the foot out in front of you, so it requires less mobility. Up to you how you want to run that, but we've suggested here the Bulgarian squats because it's something different than the normal scale we'll see for pistols. Let's see. It's as far as you can go in 15 minutes, but it's just going to kind of be a trudge. I would say there's probably not much urgency to this unless you're a competitor and you're on this the mobile ninja gymnastics gangster side of this. But if that's the case, then you should have jumped them up to overhead barbell pistols, which are a friggin' nightmare. Probably the single most flexibility / mobility requirement movement that we would ever do. Alternating. Yeah, I think the only thing, I wonder if a 1-arm would be harder. 1-arm overhead pistol. Who knows? Maybe I'll have to try it after this. But I think that if someone's a true ninja and they're just going to blast through this at the 15 minutes, this is a day that you could say, hey, guess what? Jimmy Ninja, you're going to jump it up to overhead barbell pistols, and they'll be like, oh, what? And then you'll just get after them. Cool. Make sure you're spending time down here building up to these scales, the ring muscle up scales. You're doing your very best to just get them through this warm up, and then talk about these box muscle up transitions, the feet on the box muscle ups, the Jackie Chan drill. And if you have to, not if you have to, you should watch that video and see kind of how it's done. And one thing, we kind of mentioned it here, but when you're teaching a muscle up, oftentimes people get stuck. They try to press up too soon before they've made the transition. So easy thing to do with that is to just not allow them to press up. Hey, we're not worried about the dip right now. When we're practicing the transition, let's just practice the transition. Then once they get to the workout, they can practice that dip portion of it. Anywho, good day, fantastic day. You got to hype people up about it, and you got to come in friggin' hot. What I mean by that is you, as a coach, need to come in coaching the living daylights out of this. Otherwise, people are not really going to feel it. I think this is a day that, if not delivered well, could lead to a lot of frustration more than anything else. But it's your job to kind of meet people where they're at and give them something they feel like they're walking away from the day from with a bit of a success, whether it be understanding a new transitional piece to the muscle up, or moving through a overhead barbell pistol. They still need to feel like they've done something for the day, that they feel like they put positive energy and effort towards improvement upon their physicality. Like that's your goal, that's your role, that's your job. But sometimes we get so wrapped up in just going so hard that we puke that we forget that we need to be pushing the learning side of things as well, and that by going from not being able to do something to doing something, we've increased our capacity in a way that is kind of immeasurable, but at the same time something that is super, super valuable to us as humans. Anywho, get after this day. It's going to be a challenging day to coach, but you can friggin' do it. Wednesday the 20th is kind of the polar opposite of Tuesday, where we went from like massive complexity to kind of complex and more just solid conditioning and grind. It's a 16-minute straight grind. I think more than anything, this is a psychological mind screw. And the reason I say that is because it's just not easy to do what's going on here. Not easy, but it's easy in essence that you're teaching one thing, basically a dumbbell hang squat clean, and then breaking it down into its pieces, but you're doing it for 16 minutes straight. And to do anything for 16 minutes straight, like picture going for a run for 16 minutes straight, like that's monotonous enough. But if you're sitting there doing cleans like in one spot, barely moving, and the only change is in the load and is in the style of clean that you're doing, this is going to lead to psychological frustration. And this, I think when you're coaching, it is more about the mental grind that you're talking. Hey guys, today is about grinding it out. Like this is one movement over and over again. So it's going to hammer home your mechanics, keeping your arms long, making sure the bells stay tight, making sure we're pulling ourselves under the load, making sure we're not just curling it, making sure our grip stays in there. Grip's going to be fried for one. Cardiorespiratory system is going to be fried. Quads are going to be fried. There's going to be a lot of things that are just like going to be just smashed on for 16 minutes straight. And not to mention that you've got the movement slightly changing and you've got the load going up. So I think this is a perfect day to just talk about the mental grind and hammer home some points of performance of like, hey, when you move more efficiently, you can move using less energy. When you have better technique, it allows you to move using less energy. And in every movement, even on the top level, when you see these guys who are really good, they're doing the least amount of work to get the same job done. Right? So the Matt Frasers of the world and the Rich Fronings of the world, they're barely moving that weight. They're using as little amount of their own energy to get that weight moving as they possibly can. Just that way they are using that much less energy. And it's when we're new that we're inefficient. We use way more energies than required to make this stuff happen. And then over time we refine that. This is 16 minutes, getting fatigued, changing the weight and changing the movement to get some, movement prep in there and to stress these points. Now, just a logistical thing, it's going up in load each time and there's no set rest time. So you're going to have to just walk from dumbbell to dumbbell. An easy way to do this is find somebody who's slightly stronger than someone else and just have them start at different weights. And just have the other person follow them in the sequence. So if somebody starts with 45s and somebody starts with 35s, then when the guy with 45 puts them down, the guy with 35 jumps into the 45s. That's one way to do it. There's plenty of other ways you can set this up. You can also just say, hey, we're only going to do 2 different loads. So instead of jumping loads each time, because maybe you don't have those kinds of weights, just have them do the first 8 minutes, the 4 minutes and the 4 minutes, the dumbbell power cleans and the dumbbell hang power cleans. Just have them do those 2 sets with 1 set of dumbbells and then go up in weight for the squat cleans and the hang squat cleans. I know it's going up for squats. It just means that you're going to be doing less of them. That's pretty much it. The day is fun. Coach the daylights out of it. If you really wanted to, you could just have someone use the same set of dumbbells the entire time. And then it's just this psychological grind. But make sure you're teaching mechanics here, teaching how to keep the bells tight, like we said before, talking about positioning, talking about knees, talking about, not getting caved in by the load, and just really separating out the difference in all these movements, the difference between a dumbbell power clean, the difference between a hang power clean, difference between a squat clean, difference between a hang squat clean. Got it? Get it? Good. One last thing. When you're doing dumbbell power cleans and when you're doing dumbbell squat cleans, dumbbell works weird because when you're touching the ground, it kind of caves the knees in. Now there's people who can do it and it's not the worst thing in the world, like if you're working through reps here. but you might want to look at teaching it from between the legs. I mean, there's no set standard for like, hey, we're about to compete at the games, so it needs to be X, Y, and Z. So I personally find I can teach this quite a bit better in terms of hitting the points of performance of knees tracking toes, maintaining good squat position. If people are almost already in their squat position, tapping the ground and then, moving from there, I find that back angle stays a little bit better, knee angle stays a little bit better, and it's just one of those things where it's a concession that I'm willing to make based off of movement, just because I know that if they really were faced with it, of course they could pull their dumbbells on the outside and figure it out. If you're a competitor, like I've never seen them allow it between the legs. That being said, maybe they did. Anyway, these days when I'm doing them, 90% of the time, especially because I'm not competing, I'm doing them between my legs just because that's a much more ideal position for me and just those points of performance if I'm looking at keeping back and weight and knees and all that stuff in good places. So something to think about, something to try. Get after it. Thursday the 21st, here's what we've got. Row for 30 calories or 40 calories, and with the remainder of that time of 4 minutes, you do as many alternating dumbbell Turkish get-ups as possible, rest for a minute, and then you do 3 rounds of this. So this is kind of coupled with the other days that we've had this week. This is what I'm talking about, is this week is more of like it's a bit of a mind screw. You have to really approach these as a coach in a way that you can get this information across and let people understand the stimulus. People are going to thrash themselves in the row, and that's an easy way to ratchet up the intensity, have them go really hard in the row, and just do what they can for the alternating dumbbell Turkish get-ups. Turkish get-ups are made to be done slow. You're going to be breathing really hard as you do this, but just let them know that we're looking for stability, and we're going to be looking for making sure that you can move through the mechanics of a Turkish get-up under stress, under fatigue, well. So choose appropriate loads, move prettier rather than moving quickly when it comes to the Turkish get-up, and think about shoulder positioning and just having a pretty movement. Where you really kind of ratchet up, like I said, the turn this up in volume is on that 30 or 40 calorie row when people are kind of getting in there and rowing. Now, this might be a thing where you don't quite have the ability to do exactly the 1 minute rest, and it might be, hey, in groups of 3, work your way through this. Kind of like earlier in the week with that finisher. Just in groups of 3, work your way through this. When you get on the row, look at the timer. Know when 4 minutes is from that. Row as hard as you can for 30, 40 calories. Hop off and get after it on those Turkish get-ups. That way you can have kind of 3 people per rower and working through it. That's kind of what I'd say for this. This is a great day to teach the mechanics of the Turkish get-up. It's also a pretty damn good day to go over a little bit of rowing technique just so you can talk to people about that. And you can see this in the 5-cal row, the pike around the world, that kind of stuff. Sorry, I didn't mean to click on that. But if you're running through a warm-up and you've got 2 things like a pike around the world and then a calorie on the row, it's really easy to partner people up and say, hey, half you guys go over to the rower, half you guys go right over here, and you guys are going to do some pike around the worlds while I talk to these other people. And you don't even need to do 10. You can just do whatever it takes to get your points across on the rower and talk about some rowing mechanics. But this is a good way to teach one thing and move through the other and just kind of get that simultaneously in there. That's pretty much it. We've got some accessory work on the day. Make sure you get to it. And it's accessory pulling work. So it's talking about bar muscle ups, chest to bar pull ups, strict toes to bar, and it's just moving through it. It's got a time limit more than anything else. It says 5 sets, but it's 15, 20 minutes. Don't make people go over. We're saying 5 sets of this, but again, if you can't make it through 5 sets, you just want to make people move through it so that they just get some extra pulling work in these more complicated gymnastics for this workout for this day. Talk to them about that beforehand when, hey, you guys, we're going to do accessory work, as well as here's our rowing death workout at the end. And that is Thursday the 21st. All right, Friday the 22nd, we've got the open, the first of the open workouts. We will program that open workout into this day. As soon as it's released, we will write a session plan for it that fits with the week, and we'll pop it on this day. We'll make sure everybody kind of knows what to do and give some tips on how to run it, and just kind of get. Oftentimes these warm-ups are just like general warm-ups to get you there, and then just kind of a general class structure to allow for people to do the workouts. I'm looking forward to it. Again, none of us have any idea what's going to happen. I mean, I'm as close to HQ as you could possibly be. I work for them, level 1s, level 2s, and all my friends work for HQ, and all the stuff that's been going on. None of us have any idea what the Open's going to be or how it's going to look or anything like that. If I had to guess, I would say because I know Greg Glassman's been in control of the programming for a while now, we're going to see some strict stuff. I just don't know how they're going to judge that. I don't know what it's all going to look like. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Look forward to it. See you guys Friday the 22nd. Again, the stuff with HQ and the layoffs, it's hard to watch, and I don't think anyone really knows what's going on. We'll see. And I think the next 6 months will be pretty telling as to what's happening. I think we'll get some information. So again, that's just a guess. Don't really know. Anywho, that's Friday the 22nd. All right, Saturday the 23rd, we've got kind of two things that can be going on. You got the Open workout, which was done on Friday the 22nd, and I think you should, if people weren't able to make it that day, people are probably going to want to come in and do this on either Saturday or Sunday. So just make sure you have a plan for dealing with people who want to do that, whether they're another coach or whether it's setting up a way that they can kind of do this off in the corner or a different time. It's definitely always suggested just because it's so close to the Open, it kind of falls in that community spirit sort of dealio. With Saturday the 23rd, the workout's going to be a pretty straightforward 20-minute go with a partner. Love doing the partner workouts on the weekends, but there's nothing overly complex about this. You've got in partners. Well, one partner performs chest-to-bar pull-ups. The other does AMRAP assault bike. Then as soon as that 10 minutes is up, while one partner performs strict handstand push-ups, the other partner performs as many calories on the assault bike. And you basically switch the movements as needed. And generally the way that I would lay this out for your people is you just talk to them and say, hey, you switch as needed, and your score is going to be the two things together. So usually one of you is the pace setter, and the other one's just kind of along for the ride, and whenever you say switch, they switch. And it's kind of a fun little challenge of how many do you want to do? How many do you want to do before you switch? And oftentimes people just be like, so when I'm done with 10, we're just going to switch, okay? And then they just switch every 10, and that's totally cool. But I think it adds a level of communication and a level of teamwork to a workout that you don't usually find when you're sucking in wind like that. Anywho, nothing overly complex about it, just 20 minutes of some partner work and some handstand push-ups and some all those other fun things. Make sure for the scaling today, you're choosing an appropriate scale for people, and let them know that when you lead into a day like this where it's got chest-to-bar pull-ups and strict handstand push-ups, that you're saying, hey, we're going to take care of you if you don't have these two things. Like a quick scale for the chest-to-bar pull-up, we've got a jumping chest-to-bar pull-up. Or a quick scale for this, we can do a banded chest-to-bar pull-up or a ring row. Like, just let them know that, hey, we've got a couple options for the chest-to-bar pull-up. Ring rows, banded chest-to-bar pull-ups. We cut a couple things in there, so don't worry, we'll take care of you, especially on these days where it's partners and there's usually a lot of people. Same thing with the strict handstand push-up. Hey, everyone, we're going to do this with the strict handstand push-up. And, we've got a couple scales we can do, pike handstand push-up or a seated strict press. There's a few things that we have in here. So just make sure people know that they're taken care of before you jump into the actual session. One thing it does, I would suggest, is it's got calories on the assault bike for both of these. If you don't have assault bikes, that's going to be an issue. But you can always switch it out with anything else, like a rower or a ski erg or even if you want to do a jump rope or you wanted to do running or you wanted to do mountain climbers or butt kickers, you could throw something really nasty in there to just kind of keep the soul suckingness of an assault bike in there. If you wanted to, you had like a couple assault bikes, you didn't have many, you could always switch it. So in one of the first 10 minutes, like partners are doing assault bikes, and then you switch, and so say one group starts on the handstand push-ups assault bike and the other group starts on like rower as chest-to-bar pull-up, and then they just kind of flip-flop after that first 10 minutes. Totally up to you. Make sure you think about it beforehand. What kind of class you're going to have, what's the gear you have, and kind of head on in there with a plan. I know we've done a bit of rowing in the week, but that's okay. Rowing, it's pretty hard to do too much rowing unless the only thing you do is rowing. And I think Mikko Salo would say differently. No such thing as too much rowing. 5K every day. 5K repeats. Anyway, let's go from Saturday the 23rd to Sunday the 24th. Here we are, Sunday the 24th, the end of the week. We might have some other people trickling in to finish off those open workouts. Again, make sure you have some plan in your mind to accommodate them. Interesting day, because I don't think I've seen this many abbreviations in a description ever. 10 SADBOH squats. It should just be SQs. But it means minute 1, you can do 10 single arm dumbbell overhead squats. Now, a single arm dumbbell overhead squat is challenging, to say the least. And just have people, try it in the warm up, work towards it, maybe do some skill work towards it. But if they can't do it, it's going to be one of those things where you don't have to have people do it. You can always have them do single arm dumbbell front squats, which don't feel much better. They just don't require the same kind of ankles, knees, hips, and shoulders to get it all done there. So 1 minute of 10 single arm dumbbell overhead squats. On minute 2, you're going to do 8 burpees. On minute 3, you're going to do max over unders. On minute 4, you're going to do a rest. So 10 squats, 8 burpees, max over-unders. Now, the idea behind this is speed, right? So it's speed. How fast can you go? So it's an interval work of how fast can you get these things done? And then it's an all-out effort for the max over-unders. So it's a whole minute, but you get a minute after rest after that. So you know that you're going to get to make that happen. So I think this is a good day psychologically for people who usually don't know how to push, because you can say, hey, the reps are low enough. You just got to go fast. And I would say during the warm-up, have some build-up to where people are practicing going really, really fast for maybe 2 reps or 3 reps or 4 reps, and show them the difference between going fast and going at steady pace. And fast is fast, steady is steady, and we're looking for fast. So do your very best to educate people on intervals, and then have them thrash themselves to all high heaven on those max over-unders. I think that's just going to kick people in the teeth a little bit more than they think. Max over-unders in after the first minute, just psychologically approaching that's going to be a dirty one. Anywho, it's a fun day. Teach the daylights out of the overhead squats. Have people understand how to sprint on each one of these sections, and make sure they know that they get to rest. 5 rounds. Enjoy it. That was the week.